I feel like I probably use only a fraction of it. But then as a business owner, how much of this can I really use, and do I need to know about this? So there's also a concept about simplification on what can I let go that I really don't need.
Welcome to Macpreneur, the show for seasoned solopreneurs looking to streamline their business on a Mac. Unlock the secrets to saving time and money with your host and technology mentor, Damien Schruers.
Hello. Today I have the pleasure to introduce Beate Chelette. Beate is the growth architect and founder of the Women's Code and provides visionaries and leaders with strategies that grow their authority so that they can scale their impact. Beate bootstrapped her passion for photography into a global business and eventually sold it to Bill Gates in a multi-million-dollar deal. Beate, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, in a Mac show to talk about Bill Gates, it's a bit funny. So let's go to the main topic of the show. And at the time, did you already have a Mac?
Oh my God, would I ever touch anything other than a Mac? Needless to say, when I sold my business to a Bill Gates company, and then I was there for the integration, they switched me immediately over to, I can't even say the word, but I asked them if I could work on two platforms. So they, I still then was working on my platform. Yes, I've always worked on Macs.
Mm. And so what is your current setup then?
So my current setup is that I am on literally 5 machines. So what I really like is the designating of a particular device for a particular task. So here in my studio, I have an Intel MacBook Pro, which I love because it has a little bit more power, and I try to keep this machine really focused on speed, so that when we do the high end streaming, that works. So that way I can come from my other room into this closet sized room and just turn on the lights, turn on the machine, and then I can work. I have a dock, so the microphone and the camera, and then I have an external setup with two external monitors here. Is all set up like in this room, and that's where it stays. Sometimes I take the laptop, but I try not to because I don't want to mess up this machine for this particular purpose. Then I have a desktop, a large Mac with an external screen. That's where I do my trainings and my Zoom calls. So I do facilitation, so that way I can have my agenda and my information on one side of the screen, and then I can have the people I'm talking to right in front of me. And I work in all kinds of different software for different projects, so I need to be able to go back and forth really quick. So that's my office setup. Then I have a lighter MacBook Pro, which is a little older than this one, with an Intel chip that I have that I travel with, because it's a lighter one. It's not as heavy as this MacBook Pro, and I take that with me anywhere I go. And that's, sometimes when I sit at home and I need to look at something, I'll pull out that laptop and I sit on the couch or work on that. And then I have a desktop set up in my she shed in my house, where also with a second external monitor, so that if I have an early call, that I can take it from my house.
Mm-hmm. Very good. So the first question that comes to mind is, how do you keep all that synchronized, or do you need to keep that synchronized? So what's your take on that?
Yes, I do. So we had used Dropbox for a long time, and I really liked Dropbox. And then Dropbox, and I hope somebody from Dropbox is listening to it, because WTF, what the heck? So Dropbox did this thing in their expansion where every time I shared a folder with a client, unbeknownst to me, they sent them an email, said, "You need to tell Beate to add you to her team." But they're not on my team.
Mm-hmm.
They're a client, and I'm sharing a folder with them. So I found myself having to explain to my client that I wasn't purposely withholding anything from them, which is a really bad client experience. And finally, I said to Dropbox, "You need to just stop it," and they wouldn't. So we went over to the Google Workspace. And the Google Workspace I like because we already have the Workspace emails for our team, and with that comes a lot of storage. So we didn't even have to pay for the storage that separately that we would have to pay for Dropbox for, and we got way, 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 way more storage. So if somebody from Google is listening, people, you really got to get this sorting the Google Drive a little bit under control because it's so freaking clunky. And so difficult, the right click and the sharing of the links. I mean, somebody's gotta work on this and make this a little bit easier. So um, all of our files are in the cloud, and so I can access that from my computers very quickly. So a computer I don't want a lot of stuff on, I don't have the work offline version. So this MacBook Pro does not have an offline version of the Google Drive, so I have to go in the drive to get the files, which frees up this computer. And on my desktop and the other laptop, I do because that's the computer I travel with. So that's how we really sync the files. And then we have really moved on to cloud-based programs for the entire team, pretty much. So we don't really have a syncing issue because we share. Like we share Canva as a team, we share the Google Drive as a team, and that way, and then we work in Asana as a project management software. And what we do in Asana, and I really recommend this to all of your listeners, in the description field or whatever project management software you use, put the links in the description on where everything is. So that way you don't search for it. So when we do a podcast, for example, we have a folder in the Google Drive where I upload the raw files, and then there's an edited file and another file. So we link to the main folder so that everybody that's working on this can pull it from that folder. And that's kind of how we do it. It's like we have it in we have it in different places, but we link it in the project management software so everybody knows where to find it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if we go back to Google Workspace, I really like it a lot. So EasyTech has been on Google Workspace since the beginning.
Yeah.
The main issue that I have found with Google Drive is backing up the files. And so for the listeners who don't know, nowadays, it was not true in the past, but nowadays you can put any kind of file in Google Drive. You can put a Microsoft Excel file, you double click on it, and it will open in Google Sheets. It doesn't no need to convert anything. So that's, I would say, a big improvement compared to 11 years ago when I started. However, there is still an issue with the native files. A Google Sheet, a native Google Sheet, a native Google Doc, or a native Google Slide file is not a real file. So it's even those of you, the listeners, who synchronize and you have locally synchronized Google Drive with your Mac, those files are not files. They are just shortcuts to a file in the cloud. And so that's the main, I would say, issue at hand. If you have PDFs, if you have Excel, Word, or PowerPoint files, no problems. You will have a local copy on your Mac. But if it's a .g sheets and .g docs and so on, it's not a file. It's just a URL. And so the solution that I found, because I have been bit by that. So I have lost a bunch of files, and I thought I was clever because I was using Time Machine. I was like, yes, I will restore those files. But what I restored, I restored the URLs to something that didn't exist anymore.
Yeah, you have to actually go and I just did this because I had the same question as you do, and I'm like, where are the heck all these files? And so you request via the Workspace a backup,
Mhm.
and then it does that in the background. And next thing I know, my machine is like coming up with all these errors, and it says, your computer is out of memory. And what I'm noticing is that I'm having that so they zip all these everything that's on the drive, and I mean we're talking terabytes for me.
Mhm.
And they downloading it in zip files on my computer, and so the computer runs out of space. So that was a little tricky to get all the files off my computer and get it on my hard backup drive to
Mhm.
make sure that these files are at least somewhere saved, because it's so much of how do you even mirror something like that for the backup. But that's something you probably would have to do, and then catch it when these files are being backed up and coming in, so you can move them immediately to an external drive, to not freeze up your machine. Because then I was going into a Zoom meeting and nothing worked because I had like what, a terabyte of files waiting to be downloaded, and I couldn't. Then I had to figure out what I had already downloaded and what I already had backed up, and then I had to delete those files and empty the trash. That was a little that was a little rough. That would be better if Google would come up with a system, an API integration into some, like Backblaze,
Mhm.
which we use for the computers, where we can just back it up into Backblaze. That would be amazing.
So they have an API. The problem is that there are not many services, online services, that offer this kind of backup systems. I had found a service, an online service that was doing that, but it was not reliable, and I was not really ready to pay for that. And so what I ended up doing is, because I have already a Synology NAS. Do you know what that is?
No.
So it's a NAS stands for network attached storage. So it's a
Hmm.
big box
Hmm.
with multiple hard drives. I have 4 hard drives,
Hmm.
and you can build up redundancy. So in
All
my
right.
case, I have 4 times 10 terabytes. So you would think that I have 40 terabytes of storage, but no, there is 10 terabytes of redundancy. So any drive can fail, and I will not lose any data. And so I have this big Synology NAS at home, and the Synology offers some applications if you want. And one of those applications is Google Workspace Backup. It's
Mm.
um, I think it's not doing it um, continuously. It's doing it. I've programmed it to do it once or twice a day. I think noon and midnight, something like that. And so I had to obviously sign in with my Google account, my Google Workspace account. I'm a Google Workspace admin for my domain.
Mhm.
So you need somebody with admin privileges. But then twice a day, it goes and it does the backup of not only Google Drive, but also Google Contacts, Gmail, Google Calendar. So everything in Google Workspace is backed up. And the beauty, the reason why I was so happy finding that was that all those G Sheets and G Docs and so on, they are converted. So a
Oh,
Google,
nice.
Google Sheets are converted into Excel. Google
Oh,
Docs are
nice.
converted to Word, DocX, and
Oh,
Google
nice.
Slides and PowerPoint. And so on my Synology NAS, which is afterwards obviously backed up with uh, I have another backup of that for that one. But yeah, I have all my Google proprietary files in a Microsoft compatible format.
Yeah, I like that a lot. What I've done also is that I can access the Google Drive via my laptop, so I don't go in the cloud. I access it as via the offline,
Mhm.
um, plug, or whatever you call it, and then it will open my files natively in Microsoft Document. And I really don't think that the native Google files are that great. I don't their whatever Excel version and their document version for editing the worst. I mean, if I edit a podcast script, I have to cross out. So, and in the cloud, it's just too clunky. Whereas in the document via Microsoft, it's so much easier for me to edit a script for the video editor. So I find there's a lot of limitations with Google. But as a principle, to be really honest with you, Damien, I also don't like putting all my eggs in one basket. I don't want to give Microsoft everything, and I don't want to give Google everything, and I certainly don't want to give Mac everything. So you have to be really careful, sort of also from a data perspective, how much data you're comfortable to give to any one particular mega company, because they say that it's safe, but they have access to everything. I mean, that's just a fact of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the files are encrypted locally on their servers, but they have the encryption key or the decryption key. So if they wanted to, they could access the files. The only online service that can offer true encryption, meaning that they cannot even decrypt the files, is iCloud Drive, provided that you turn on end-to-end encryption. So you have to turn on advanced data protection, which has itself some requirements and some drawbacks. So it's not entirely, I would say, problem-free. But I would say for people who absolutely want total security and total privacy of their data, then today, unfortunately, is the only way. The drawback of iCloud Drive is we have little to no control of which files are locally on the Mac and which files are, and so on. With the next version of macOS 15 Sequoia, they are bringing a little bit more control. So it will be possible to say, this folder, keep it always on my Mac, and for the rest, just free up space whenever needed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that part of the downloading, that was also a huge problem of Dropbox. And I did like Dropbox because I had the file on my computer and then it was backed up. And then I could choose which one was going in the cloud and which one not. But with the Mac, Dropbox has major issues that it doesn't always download. So, yeah, I'm glad you're sharing all these tips. I have to really look into this. But you were right. On the Google Drive, the backup is a major concern.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we talked a lot about basically cloud services. Let's go and circle back to Mac applications. So whether they are from Apple or third-party apps, but apps that you absolutely need on your Mac.
Yeah, so I use Microsoft. I use everything Microsoft, from PowerPoint, Excel to Word. I use Adobe. Really less and less, because I find that the problem with Adobe, and I hope somebody from Adobe is listening, this taking over the world crap, you got to just stop it. I think that people are very sophisticated today with the kind of applications that work for them. So the companies that keep pushing to make you go completely native to their particular suite, it leaves a really bad taste in your mouth, because it feels like they're pushing you to convince you to do something that you don't want to do. So Adobe, I really shut down the cloud for most of it, all the services, and I'm just using the Acrobat Reader. I found that other things are easier to do. I'm just looking what I'm having. Slack, we definitely use Slack. We actually on the free version, because we use the free version for the team just for quick things, and because my team is all over the world. So if I say, hey, don't forget to do this, or are these emails ready to go out? And so if I have a team in the Philippines, and I don't always know exactly when they're working, because they may take off an hour or two for dinner and putting the kids to bed, and then they may go back on for another 2 hours. So with Slack, I can have these conversations relatively quickly, or as much in real time as I possibly desire. I personally, for my accounting, use Quicken, which is much better. Even though I was really mad at them because it discontinued the Mac support for a number of years and left us hanging until they realized that that was really idiotic. So now with that back, we're using it. And that is sort of a desktop cloud combined application. And then I use Mail a lot, and I actually like Mail a lot better than Outlook because I find that Outlook, ever so often the old rivalry between Microsoft and Apple comes through, and then there's some inexplicable problem that you can't solve, and it's just because they just don't like each other and they don't want you to do that, even though they say they do. So I stay native in my Mail. I like Messenger, Chat. I use Safari, and mostly Chrome, really, on my computer because it integrates with all these other apps. That's really the majority of what I use. I do presentations in PowerPoint. I just got a new fun little program called SketchWow to animate because I think that the presentation way is changing. I think people are a little tired of these slick PowerPoint presentations, and they want to see something that they haven't seen. And I can animate. It looks more like an explainer video type of thing. So I'm playing with it. I'm always looking for new software and for ways to do things that make my life easier. And I go to AppSumo for that. So I'm a Sumoling.
So what's the name again of do you have this sketch?
It's called SketchWow.
SketchWow, okay.
Yeah. So SketchWow really is where I can, where I can take a concept that I want to explain and put it in a slide, and then have little animations in it. And it's just easier. It's just easier to do. It's relatively early in their development, so it's really not working all that great.
Mhm.
But I'm always looking for, because I'm a growth architect, I always have to explain concepts, and I find that if they tell the story and explain the concept, that the people I'm talking to go, oh, that's it. So if I say, well, imagine a triangle, it's different than if I show them a triangle.
Mhm. Yeah. I will have to have a look at that. It seems interesting.
You'll actually, it's kind of fun, actually. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, very good. So let's go to the next segment about the tip or the trick, something that you discovered on your Mac that you wished you knew before.
A tip or trick on my Mac that I wished I knew before. Honestly, I think I really got to get myself into the Mac store and get some Mac education. Like the one thing that I just learned, which, this is really, really very silly. I learned how to make stickers. And I have a granddaughter who is 1 year old. And so on my phone, I figured out how to make a sticker. So now my daughter is drowning in baby stickers. And now I'm going like, what else can I do that I should know about?
Yeah, and the Apple Store now, they are doing more and more actually education stuff. So they have, I think it's called Today at Apple. And most Apple stores, they organize like training sessions. Usually it's around 1 hour, and it's like a photo tour in New York. So learn how to use your great iPhone camera and other stuff like that. There are also stuff for kids to learn to code, to learn to program, to do animations and stuff like that.
Yeah, I definitely think that would be really helpful. I feel like I probably use only a fraction of it. But then as a business owner, and I think, Damien, we have to be really clear about this, how much of this can I really, use, and do I need to know about this? So there's also a concept about simplification on what can I let go that I really don't need. So I have made a conscious choice to not use iTunes. I just don't, because I literally hate what Apple did with it. I had all this music that I had purchased, and that was in my iTunes. And every time there was an upgrade, my music would disappear. So I had to get an app to take all the music that I bought and protect it by, downloading it off my devices, which Apple does not want, and then put it on a flash drive so that I have it. So every time now I get a new phone and I open iTunes to listen to music on my phone or a computer, all the music is gone. So now I have to go back in my workaround and install that app and then upload back everything again. Why? Why? What's the freaking point of that? We know that with Napster back in the day, that was an issue, but it's really not an issue anymore. If somebody like me is old school and wants to not use Spotify for everything because I want to have my music from whatever and it makes me feel good, just let me have it.
Yeah, unfortunately, Apple has been going more and more towards the subscription route, and so that will be one of the legacies of Tim Cook, the CEO, that the services revenue has been steadily growing. I don't know the exact figure. I think it's more than 20 or 25% of the revenue is services.
Because you
now.
Can't access anything, and they make it so difficult that at the end of the day, you just give in and you just surrender. It was so interesting. My car was broken into the other day, and I had an iPod. They did not take the iPod because now it's considered a legacy.
Yeah.
A legacy product. My daughter has an iPod, and she still uses it, and she is adamant that she's not going to use anything other than that.
And good luck to find a new
I know.
30-pin connector.
And until we have no connectors left.
Yeah. Very good. So we're almost at the end. Now here comes the question of, if you were in charge of the Mac division at Apple, what would be your first priority?
My first priority really would be to study workflow better, because I think that what we are seeing now is the complexity of us having to work in multiple applications, from cloud to offline, and the management on what needs to be open at all times sucks up so much energy from the computer that I think that there has to be, and they're trying to do that in the Launchpad, which is clunky at best. But to give me sort of a framework where I can go and see everything that I have open. So instead of, swiping and seeing what the windows are that are open, to really look at how I move from one thing to another. So if I'm in, let's say, go high level in my CRM and I'm working on something, now I'm realizing I need a graphic. Now I need to go over to Canva. Now I need to create my graphic. Now I need to download the graphic from Canva. I need to upload it to high level. So how do I, where do I now put the graphic? Am I going to put the graphic now on the Google Drive? And then I need a link for that so that my team knows where it's at. So now suddenly I have all these like massive amounts of steps. So if somebody can figure this out on how to sort of create an operating system for a workflow, that's not a project management software, but really like like when they launch a rocket, there's the center where everything happens. I think we kind of need that. That's something that I would look into it, because I think that's a really big differentiation factor. I think everybody has a problem with that. The one thing that I do like about Microsoft that I'm not sure, do I want Apple to do that or not? But when you close a window and there's no other window open, it closes the application. I think Apple probably should do something like that, because sometimes we find ourselves having applications open that we don't even use because we didn't pay attention to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's not even 100% the same behavior. For some applications like system settings, if you click on the red button, you close system settings. But for most applications, you just close a window.
Yeah.
And yeah, recently I started coaching a person who was on PCs for decades, just had her first MacBook. And yeah, I ended up saying to her, look, you have to change your habits. You clicking on that red button will not be enough. And Command Q, quit, Command Q. If you really want to stop something, Command Q, right? It's almost the only.
And that would be so easy to do. I mean, if it's the last window that's open and you're closing it, all they would have to say is like, this is the only window open in this application. You want to close the application altogether, right?
Yeah.
Boom, done. Then I, if I have two options versus close window, close is like Google does this really well when you now manage sharing in a Google folder and you go in a file. It asks you if you just want to take the sharing off for the file or for the folder, which I made a mistake once, and then nobody had access because I accidentally clicked folder. But then when I looked into it, I like this idea a lot, to say, could we just close? Is it the file or is it the folder? So is it the window or is it the application? I don't think that should be very difficult to do.
No. Yeah. So yeah, the concept of the workflow, the thing is, it's everybody has a different set of tools, right? To find a common ground, right? That's I would say the approach. The Apple approach is they do something that they know 80% of the user do, and then they don't care so much about the other 20%, unfortunately. And yeah, this served them well. But
well, and they also, you know what, this like whole thing is like that nobody wants to play with each other. I mean, guys, just get over it. It's not you who is determining what we are using. It's us who determines what we want to use. I mean, we do have free will, last time I checked. So, you know, the one thing, like what I saw with Google, and I think that's really also another thing we need to take away, you know, as business owners, is when Google was doing the Google fitness tracker, which I actually really liked, because I don't like, you know, I actually wear a watch that my dad gave me, and then I have a fitness tracker, but the fitness tracker is also a watch. That's kind of stupid. So now I have an actual watch, which I like better, and then I have this other thing. So with their fitness tracker, there was a version where it just was taking the measurements, but you couldn't really look at it unless you opened the app. So it was not as distracting, which I liked. And then one day they just said, we shut everything down, return your device, you get a full refund, because they bought Fitbit. Right? So they knew when they didn't know how to do something, and then they just walked away from it. So I think sometimes these big companies do need to walk away from something and say, well, we're just not good at it. So let's just have the other people that have this this ability and let them have that market share. We focus on what we're really good at, but you know, who am I to tell Google what to do?
Yeah. So very good. Where can people find you online?
Yes, so I'm known as the Growth Architect, and if you are a business owner, then take our free quiz. It's called whatsyourtalentworth.com, and it's a quiz that I designed. So for anybody who wants to know what their earning potential is in this market, go ahead and take that quiz. It's a mathematical calculation. It spits out a number, And then you look at how much money you're making right now and how much your earning potential is. And if there's a discrepancy, you probably want to talk to me. And you do that at uncoverysession.com, or just take a look at what's out there.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. So thank you, Beate. And if, like Beate, you would like to share how you are using your Mac to run your solopreneur business, it's very simple. Just visit macpreneur.com/apply. If you are already on Podmatch, click on the button and you will land on the show profile page. Otherwise, fill the application form and I will get back to you within a few days. Once again, it's macpreneur.com/apply. In the comments below, please share your main takeaway from this episode. And if not done yet, please subscribe to my channel so you will get more helpful tips on how to run your business on your Mac. And until next time, I'm Damien Schreurs, wishing you a great day.
Thank you for watching the Macpreneur podcast. If you've enjoyed the show, please leave a comment and share it with a friend right now.